All right, cool, 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 cool.
Seems you cannot be replaced, and I'm the one who will stay. Oh, oh, oh. In this world, it's just us. You know it's not the same as it was. In this world, it's just us. You know it's not the same as it was. As it was. You know it's not the same. Answer the phone. You know you're no good alone. Why are you sitting at home on the floor? What kind of pills are you on? Ringing the bell, and nobody's coming to help. Your daddy lives by himself. He just wants to know that you're well. Oh, oh, oh. In this world, it's just us. You know it's not the same as it was. In this world, it's just us. You know it's not the same as it was. As it was. You know it's not the same as it was. As it was. As it was. I don't want to talk about the way that it was. Leave from America to kiss follower. I don't want to talk about doing it first. Don't want to get ahead like speed internet. I don't want to talk about the way that it was. Leave from America to kiss follower.
All right, all right. I think we're ready here. What's going on, everybody? How's it
All right.
going? Hey, welcome to IP's Late Night Live. And it's 11 p.m. I know to everyone that I told what time the stream would be starting. I said like 10:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
CT. But sometimes we get a little bit distracted. We talk about a few things before the stream. They're good topics. But yeah, now we're here. So again, thanks to all that's showing up, and thank you, Savage, for wanting to come in as well on a late notice.
Right.
Yeah, and before we start, again, I just wanted to remind everyone that's tuned in and those that will see this live later on that the donations for my fundraising that I've done for Shoko, I'm going to close that Friday. So if you are still able to, please feel free to donate to the GoFundMe account. That being said, I think I said what I wanted to about the community post. So then, going back to the purpose of this stream tonight. For those of you that saw the description already, I posted the link to the video of the YouTube channel called, I believe it was Primos Chidos, and they're talking about the identity of what it means to be like native if you are Mexican, right? And since the beginning of this podcast, when Juan was here, God bless his soul, we always stood for, claiming your roots, right? Despite those that would oppose us, would say certain things like, you're not native because you don't practice a culture, you weren't born in a community, tons of things, right? But we still pressed on. And even after almost well, going on 2 years almost, we still stand by these same things, such as like being proud that you're Native, right? And I think it's a really good thing because it brings people together, and we're able to help other people out that are maybe less fortunate. For example, helping Indigenous communities out. And there's a lot of good that comes from this. Of course, not everything is perfect, right? But I think what I have started and what many other people that I guess so-called influencers have done is, oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I think I will create a Patreon maybe a little bit later on, but I appreciate that. So yeah, going back, yeah, we've always stood for what we stand for in terms of like, saying that you're Native, and that's what we're going to discuss here today. So Savage, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add.
No, I mean, I'd say I think I'm ready to go. Let's talk about that. What was the podcast called again?
Primos Chidos.
I have to look at the name again.
Yeah.
They were using an acronym, so.
No, you're good.
But okay.
Yeah, I think it's called Primos Chidos, and the topic was like addressing some controversy, right?
Yeah. Let me see real quick, because you sent that to me, and I was just, hold on. Oh yeah, in our discussion right here. So that video was Primos Chidos, addressing the controversy, and well, in the beginning it was just about him apologizing about some comment he made. But I think the important part is after the 12-minute mark, where he does talk about Mexicans and identifying as indigenous. So, and I mean that video has gone. I don't know if it's gone viral, but I know it's being reshared a lot on Instagram and I think Twitter.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, you can say.
Yeah. So no, I mean, we can. That's a topic of discussion. That's in the server. That's what we're talking about every day.
Right. That's literally the purpose of like why the server like exists, right? So yeah, good point. So that's what we're going to discuss, and I think they bring up some good points as well. I think they're kids that are not kids, but like adults that are in their like 20s, from what I understand. But I wanted to add one thing to this guy. Again, thank you very much for that. And I will create a Patreon, I think, later in the future when this channel grows more. So again, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I think someone liked your cat. So we're going to go ahead and start. Let me turn that music down a little bit. Gotta tell the IP band to keep that music. All right, cool. It's off. So let me go ahead and share that really quick. And what we're going to do, guys, is just like give our points Savage, you're more than welcome to, of course. And just discuss like kind of what they're saying, and kind of go into a little bit of depth about this. So again, this YouTube channel is called Primos Chidos. If they're watching this, feel free to leave comments. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and start this. I think it's right here.
All the time is I think that like people who are Mexican American have such a huge identity crisis, and this goes back like decades. I mean, we learn if you're someone from California, you learn about the Chicano movement, and the term Chicano is about Mexican Americans because they didn't feel accepted in the United States. They didn't feel accepted by Mexico. Like it goes back so many years that people who are born here but their like parents are from Mexico, they have this huge identity crisis. So what a lot of people do, in my opinion, is a lot of people kind of like identify very heavily with being Mexican, as even though Mexican is not a race, it's like a net.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I wish more people understood that Mexican is not a race. What was this movie that I watched? It was like, I think it was, what was Everything All at Once. Anyway, it was some like Asian American movie. And this girl, the protagonist was talking about her girlfriend who was Mexican, and like the mom who like was kind of like, "Hey, who are you dating?" And it's like, "Is this someone that's white?" And then she was like, the girl was like, "No, she's Mexican. Of course she's not white." And I was just like, so I think that like the kind of message that she's trying to convey is that like Mexicans aren't white, right?
Mhm.
But that's not true. Like,
Mhm.
that's not true. And I unfortunately I think that's kind of like a bigger problem, because if you see it in like these movies, right? Then how many other people are just going to assume that like Mexicans are all like that look native? And I think that hmm, someone had said something about our IP Indigenous podcast, that in the beginning we said that all Mexicans are indigenous, and we never said that. So
Mhm.
I even knew clear from the beginning that of course all Mexicans aren't indigenous.
Mhm.
And I think, I have respect for like a lot of influencers, but sometimes they say, Mexicans are native, you know, but it's very important to be a little bit more specific,
Mhm.
or else everyone's just going to assume that. Of course not. Like I said in the first video, I think that like there's politicians and like the elites are not, like a lot of them are not native, right? A lot of them are like straight up like the descendants of Spaniards that were here
Mhm.
in the earlier colonial times. Um, so would you also agree that maybe people make this mistake as well? That
Uh, well, yeah, yeah, they do because it is a very intricate, quite confusing topic. Um, again, I mean, personally, for me, it took me quite a bit of reading and to figure it out. Even though I had plenty of people who were already experienced on the subject. Explaining it to me, trying to kind of explain to me the reason why there's a lot of confusion and kind of break it all apart. I didn't fully understand it until I actually started reading books on it, on the subject, to kind of to piece together everything. And again, because in a book you have the author is actually are able to articulate himself. And then when you read multiple books, uh, if you have a good memory and you can come you piece together everything, you come to a conclusion. And then you have that aha moment where something one or two more people shared with you, it starts making sense. And this is why I'm a big promoter of reading, which unfortunately a lot of our people do not like doing. Uh, um, because it clears up a lot of confusion.
yeah,
And again, that's why I come from that old school, like a Mexica movement mentality of that you have to read to fully understand a lot of these concepts. And again, if you don't, it's so easy for people. If you don't read, unfortunately, it's so easy for people to manipulate and shape your opinion. And I think a lot of people can agree. I mean, and also question what you read. It's not just you have to basically question everything.
mhm,
But it may a lot of the stuff you can articulate it so well, and people will still not fully understand what you're saying. So that's why, like, again, you have to kind of encourage people to read a little bit, do like find out for themselves. I actually don't really like people taking my word for it, to be honest, like, even if as convincing as I might sound. But um I like it when people just actually take the initiative and they sit down and they open a book and, like, here's the source, like, just reread it as many times as you can, study it, and eventually at some point, if you really want, if you're uh committed to understanding this whole thing, all of this will clear up any confusion you might have. So
yeah. I think we got to. It starts like probably in the education system too, right? We got to make those books a little bit better.
Hmm. Oh, check it out. I mean, just to kind of give you an idea.
Sure.
I mean,
Oh,
let's see. Like for example, this book, Aztecs by Nigel Davies. That's just one source. This book was written in the 70s. Here you can see
maybe I
it.
can
Yeah.
post a little layout.
Hmm.
Okay.
Right. So this is just one book that I've read this multiple times now. I mean, this is a great book. Again, it was on the Mexican movement reading list, and what I liked about it is that it reads like a novel, like almost like like as some fictional story, but it because it's well written, because it's not really boring, like it's well written like a novel. And then I have that one, and then eventually, let's see, for example, this one right here, Michael Coe. I actually met the author of this book.
Oh wow.
He wrote several, like, man, he dedicated about 50, I want to say about 50 years into researching the Maya. Um, he passed away a few years ago, but the guy had great contributions. He wrote many books on the subject. He was a Maya expert through and through, like the best in the world. Um, and there's actually an interview with him and Olina on YouTube, or there was. I don't know if it's still up there now, but uh, again, that book, The Maya, I've actually taken it upon myself because I actually want to. I'm not Mayan, by the way. I'm not. I don't have any connections to Maya, but I'm very like this. Just goes to show you that I don't need to be Maya to embrace the culture. Like here you have a white man who wrote this book because he was so in love with the Maya culture. Why can't we do the same? Like why? I mean, you could. I mean, you're Peruvian, right? You're from down there. That you could do the same thing. You could be in love with another culture of a subculture of Native American, so to speak. So again, like uh it's just a fascination with who we were, like collectively as people pre 1492. And some people don't get that. They're so fixated on you can't claim this, you can't claim that. You didn't grow up in the I don't. It doesn't matter. Like what matters is that we're embracing what we are, where we came from. As a lot of us don't have uh, um, uh, we don't really know where we come from. We haven't done a genealogy, and even if we did, a lot of it is kind of fuzzy. At least for me, I somewhat have an idea from both parents, but honestly, like it's not even a priority to reconnect, as they're calling it. Like connect. Connect. For me, it's not a priority to reconnect to the people that I descend from.
Sure.
Um, it's just not
Oh,
for me. There's bigger priorities for me to help our us as a whole. Really, that's what it comes down to.
yeah, it's. I actually thought of something funny, and I agree with you because, like, I know that reconnecting and detribalize, which is like what a lot of influencers push, right? Even my channel is known of it to an extent.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't think it's like fair to make someone jump through all these hoops to say that you're native when, let's pretend, for example, as I mentioned before the stream, maybe my parents were like Latin people, right? And their grandparents were. I'm from Lima, right? So
Right.
let's say that, like, rewind back to like the 1800s, even like before that, like during colonization or
Mhm.
prior to colonization, my ancestors were part of the Incan Empire, right? And then
Mhm.
the Spaniards started the assimilation process, and then my ancestors started to become Latin people,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And now, fast forward to now, of course, who am I like? How am I reconnecting? How am I detribalized if I came from like an empire with cities, right?
Mhm.
I didn't come from a tribe. And if you want me to practice a culture, what do you want me to start practicing? Forced assimilation and start taking over people, you know?
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I mean, well, technically, do you count, would that count as indigenous culture? Because that's what like my ancestors were a part of, of a vast empire that the purpose was to grow and
Yeah.
bring more people under your command in some way.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not trying to like be insensitive, right? But I'm
Yeah.
just like being honest. And then if we want this to like really like grow, right? And a lot of things that happen in the US often trickle down into
Mhm.
Mexico, to South America as well,
Yeah.
especially particular like fads or
Mhm.
movements in some cases. And even my friends in Mexico and Peru are
Yeah.
telling me that they're catching wind of what's going on with the whole
Mhm.
like detribalized thing, right?
Right.
Reconnecting. But, and I brought this up, I think in the last stream a little bit, and with a couple other people, is that like people in Peru and Mexico that aren't part of communities, right? But they're realizing that they are native. They're connecting to their
Mhm.
roots in some way, or just knowing that they are. So how can we push them to say, "Oh, you have to do this, 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 and this," right? But shouldn't we just be happy that they're finally accepting like who they are? Like,
Um.
who are we? Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say like not like who are we, but I guess like who are we to say, oh, you have to like connect to your community, right?
Mhm.
And like guys, people in these countries don't live the same type of lives as we do. Many of them do
Mhm.
not. They wake up, go to work, come home, try to enjoy whatever they're able to do, and then start the next day. But they're living, kind of like vicariously in terms of
Yeah.
like hoping that,
Mhm.
they're just fortunate to earn what they are able to earn. And maybe if they can go on some sort of like vacation, some small like trip, or just doing these like little minor activities, not the same extent to what many of us are able to do in the US, right? So I just don't think it's fair to kind of like tell them to connect to something when it's very hard for them to. I think that we should be happy that they're willing to accept who they are, because they're literally raised in a community where thinking that you're native is like frowned upon, right? Or or living with the term like, don't be an indio, right? That's what they
Mhm.
hear probably on the
Yeah.
daily. So the
Yeah.
fact that we got them to this point, or they got to this point on their own,
Mhm.
is already, I think, fine.
Yeah.
Sure, if they want to connect in some way, right?
Yeah.
Do
Yeah. Yeah.
something through
That's a
culture.
milestone.
Yeah. But it just, I have my opinions on certain influencers, right?
Mhm.
That kind of like push this. Um,
Uh, yeah, I mean, there's people like
I hope I was clear.
right. No, no, you are.
Thanks.
It people are again the goalposts are always moving. Like people are pressuring, putting the pressure on people to do more. To uh, again, this is the reason why I myself don't prioritize reconnecting to the community that I belong to, because I honestly, personally, for me, I don't think it's important. There's other people who could use my attention, what I've learned, like at least my patience for teaching. There's other people that could use that could benefit from that more than me reconnecting to where I specifically come from. Um, and so and also, the fact that I've with everything, all the research and study that I've done, like people like influencers are influencers for a certain amount group of people, um, and it's a double-edged sword because they can use it, whether their intentions are good or bad. Uh, Again, are people who aren't used to reading and questioning things, they're going to take their word for it. like whether it's a good or bad information. um that's just how it is. But yeah, at least for our people down south, where they're just surviving, they don't have the same privileges that we do.
Yeah,
uh
exactly.
it's just them embracing being indigenous, like changing the way they view themselves and everybody else. Like that's already in um on its own just a huge milestone, like.
Yeah,
And so we have to be patient. Again, what people don't get is that we there's been so much psychological damage that we sustained in the last 500 years that recovering from that is going to, realistically speaking, recovering from all of that is going to take at least, I'd say at least minimum 100 years or more. But again, it's
it's a good
just
estimate.
uh and that's what, uh every 20 years, right? About every 20-25 years is a generation. So that's at least four or five generations down the line, to where having these discussions will eventually lead to that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Sorry, the sloth left a comment about you.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, I don't
uh,
know.
yeah, you're right. I mean, that's a fair estimate to make too. Like probably within 100 years or so. I mean,
Yeah.
I will be very happy if like I'm like 90 years old. I'm about to like
Mhm.
knock on death's door and I see that this is really taken off. I will be very satisfied
Mhm.
with what like I feel like made some sort of like contribution to
Yeah.
this. Um, I wanted to add one thing real quick. I think I will drop the StreamYard link in case
Mhm.
anyone wants to hop on and maybe give their points, right? Because
Yeah.
certainly there's people that maybe disagree with what we are saying. That's
Oh,
okay.
yeah. Yeah.
And I welcome people with different opinions,
Mhm.
but I got to know who you are. You better cam
Right.
up
Mhm.
because I'm not taking in trolls.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Well, I
get
mean,
that.
if you're gonna be a troll, like at least
Yeah.
cam up. You know,
Yeah.
at least cam
Right.
up before. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not?
Um.
Right? Why not?
Yeah. 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 Um. So, going back to what we were saying, did you agree though with like how the man, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
saying how a lot of Mexicans, I think he said specifically those in LA or
Mhm.
where they're at, do go through this identity crisis to figure out like who they are.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of them do. I mean, personally, but even, man, um, yeah, yeah. Again, he did make the point for Chicano because, here in the states, a s- there's a saying, or a proverb, if you will, in Spanish. Uh, que no soy de aquí ni soy de allá, ¿verdad? Which basically means neither from here, neither from over there. So because again, our people here don't accept you as, when you're Mexican from Mexico, you're not accepted over here, and when you're from here, you're not accepted over there. It's kind of like a tug of war back and forth. When you're born here in the states, yeah, there's just this whole confusion, this identity crisis, as he put it, um, where we have to basically come up with new labels to try to uh, fit in. So it's just a whole mess. Hell, even for me, I mean, I'm from Mexico City, and but I was raised here since I was 2 years old. I was raised here in California. And even for me, when the few times that I have gone back to visit family, my cousins see me as gringo, like because I've been more assimilated here instead. So it's just, but I don't take offense to it. That's the thing. Like I don't have uh, uh, much of an idea. I mean, maybe at one point I did. Not anymore though. Not once again. You study and you read all the material that's out there, and you make an effort to really reconnect, to back to the culture and contribute whatever you can. So there is that. But yeah, that's my long answer to your question.
I appreciate the answer. Yeah, it's interesting learning about like those from the West Coast, right, and those from LA, where like I think like the Chicano movement started
Mm,
in, you know,
yeah.
and how people like really didn't see themselves so connected to Mexico, but also did not feel accepted into the U.S. at that time
Mm,
period, right? So they
yeah.
developed their own identity, and I even think there was a recent video that went on. You know, Lizzo. I think she's a famous rapper. Or I'm not. I don't know that much about her, but she had like a award ceremony or something, and I guess she like it was with indigenous people, and she was like, "And this is our indigenous Chicano person that she was like bringing up, right?" So the fact that she even said that, the
Mm,
fact that someone that isn't like native like brought that up, I thought was pretty important
mm.
too.
Yeah, yeah. I did see that clip that you're talking about. It was an interesting uh it was an interesting bit, just seeing someone, recognize people for the kind of work that they're doing. uh hey, maybe eventually you'll be up there.
Thanks, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah,
It's a vote of confidence,
yeah.
but yeah, maybe one day.
Like
Um,
he runs his own podcast. He encourages uh his own his everyone who's indigenous, who knows they are, to make that jump,
yeah.
to assert your identity.
hmm Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I push, and I think that it's good for this channel to exist because, again, for many of our people like in South and Central America, like Mexico, it's been so suppressed for
Hmm.
centuries through Latin rhetoric, through the media, through colonization, and
Hmm.
everything else. But now, like you have this now, it's 2022, right? 21st century.
Hmm.
You have many people out there that are pushing to like be proud and make that jump, right? That you are native
Yeah.
because I don't see any problem with that. Because again, look through the past 200, 300 years, and even in the US as well.
Hmm.
Like, it would always be praising, like, you'd see like a lot of like white Americans that were in the media for since its existence, right? But
Hmm.
now, of course, like things are changing where
Hmm.
people in the media are wanting to show that, they're accepting of people that aren't white, right? Which is good. It's good to have like
Hmm.
diverse actors and actresses and models, right?
Yeah,
But
of
like
course.
that took time. But even if we go in like Mexico, right, we still see the telenovas, which is mostly you don't see many like native looking people,
Right.
many at
Yeah.
all. So of course there's like still change that like needs to happen, and to show that it's cool to be proud of like who you are, because again, like look at colonization.
Hmm.
Um, but we'll always run into people that oppose that, right? We
Yeah.
talked about that too. And like, what is, if you don't mind me asking, your like full on response to someone that says that like, oh, you're not a part of the community. You're not a part
Hmm.
of a community.
Yeah.
So you're not native.
Right.
Even if like that you're native. Like,
Hmm.
I know for me, like of course I took a DNA test, right? But I was like
Hmm.
adopted. I think my story is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious like what like your response is to like someone that says that.
Oh, well, and again, because I come from a place of study,
Yeah.
of uh of reading, and constantly, I'm there's probably not one day that goes by that I don't think of this subject. And I actually started in 2009, when I became involved with Michigan movement as a supporter. uh because back then, this whole detribalize, this whole reconnecting to a community, none of that was a thing, really. The important thing that they were teaching was that we read and we embrace being indigenous. Like, we dropped the whole Latino Hispanic label. We any other variations of that, like, no, that we are indigenous. That was a thing. Like, that's why, again, that's why this whole detribalized stuff is like so sounds so corny to me, to be honest.
No, I
uh,
appreciate the
um,
honesty.
so it's not something that I promote or I really care for. And But the way I respond to somebody who comes at me like, well, that's opinion. That's their opinion. You have a right to your opinion. Cool. It's not going to affect me. Unfortunately, there are plenty of people who are affected by someone's opinion, where they uh okay, I'm not. I mean, I've been told that. It's not the first time, and at one point there was a point where I was, it was pretty offensive. Someone saying shit like that to you. Oh well, you're mixed and blah blah blah. Even though, I mean, the whole blood quantum thing is controversial, but I did take a DNA test just out of curiosity. I wanted to see, okay, where am I? And I mean, my results were 75%. So three quarters, and but did I really need to do that? No, because eh, really your the question or the answer to your question of who you are is right in the mirror, you know. And I mean, I can't really say that too broadly because there are people who they have there might even be a quarter native, but they still have that confusion. For me, I didn't really need a DNA test. I was like, well, shit, the people tell me what I look like all the damn time. So yeah, I mean, again, if someone tells me that, I'm not gonna get offended. To be honest, I've done enough reading, enough research. I know where I come from. um and I'm making an effort. And someone who makes an effort into knowing all this stuff, it's constantly on your mind, uh, is there's no doubt that that person is who they say they are. So I guess you could be okay. To put it this way, I could be sitting bull reincarnate right now, and people would still but not look like, not have the ponytails and the regalia, and be very assimilated, I could be sitting bull right now dressed the way I am right now, and people would question that, you know? People would question that you're not connected, you're not this, you're not again, it's all opinion. And for me, I've gotten to the point where it just doesn't bother me, like people's like opinions, like whether I'm connected or not. Yeah, it's whatever. I'm still That's not gonna stop me from doing what I'm doing.
I guess to play more into devil's advocate, if you don't mind, then
Mm.
they will respond and be like, "Oh, but you're using phenotypes," or "That's race science,"
Mhm.
or
Right. Mhm.
it's always funny when they say that. Um, but
Mhm.
yeah, so how would you respond to that when they were like, "Oh, just
Uh,
because of how you look"?
um, well, how else should I look? White? Asian?
Yeah,
it's like it's just really stupid, to be honest. Really stupid when people say, "Well, how else should I look?" you know, like again, they want to pick us apart. They want to do everything they can to discredit who we are, what we are. And personally, for me, and like I said, it just doesn't bother me. But I, I I'm caping more for those of us who want to make that effort to reconnect, to embrace being indigenous, but they're being bullied into not claiming it. And you and I, we see that a lot. Um, so Yeah, you Mongolians. See that? That's funny. Like all this stuff is
they
just
call them
for me it
Mongolians.
is. It's just uh um like or even with what's going on with like the FBA and the unfortunately the anti-indigenous and the black community that it does exist.
These
Um
FBAs.
yeah, yeah, it's just like, man, that stuff is just, I can, for me again, it doesn't affect me, but I still have to somehow defend our people who are being attacked again, because not all not I have I'm fortunate enough to where I don't need to worry about that stuff for myself, but I worry about it for those of us who are a lot younger and they're barely waking up to all of this information.
Yeah, I agree. I worry about it too. Honestly, like it's sad because I was watching this like YouTube channel, and it was like this guy. He was of Choctaw descent, and he was going against one of these, guapos, right?
Hmm.
And they were like arguing back and forth, and she cammed up, and it was like an older woman in her like 50s. She started yelling and getting angry. So at that point, like, it's just sad and depressing that someone is able to get manipulated, and then you see her respond like with such hostility. And it's sad because these are what these channels, like these Wabo channels, like Aboriginal Power and Aboriginal TV, and all of these idiots that promote this pseudoscience, they bring these people that are older, younger, under their wing, right? And they radicalize them.
Hmm.
And it's sad to see. Like, I don't like to see that, I think they should be enjoying their lives. These people that got brainwashed, they should be doing other things, right? Not listening to these crazies.
Right.
Um, you know? So I'm glad that there's people out there that are correcting them. I will say that.
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah. You have the. It's important to be someone um, confronting that sort of anti-indigenous rhetoric. Um, yeah. Yeah. There's definitely and there's a group of people doing that kind of work. Um, just because we're we use the internet to communicate, and it's just so easy to spread lies or spread misinformation, or just or even water down the truth on certain things. So yeah, there's just a lot of work that we need to do.
yeah, I agree. I agree. And we are, more work will come, and we'll start to see more positive change.
All
I
right.
think someone had said something about like DNA tests was a scam.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say, I mean, they're a scam. I think there's some accuracy in DNA tests. Like,
Hmm.
sure, it's not perfect, but I don't think the my DNA test from Ancestry DNA was a scam.
I mean,
But I understand the hostility. Sorry.
uh, what's weird about that is, okay, uh, was actually wait, wasn't there someone in the channel mentioned once how um there was a video of a guy who did a DNA test, but he actually I think he swabbed his his dog's mouth, something like that, and he sent it in, and it and it came back with a, I don't know what what the results of that was, but if it's a scam, I mean, stuff like that, doing something like that, wouldn't it show that it's not human DNA, human saliva that that they received, or uh or how is it that they know exactly which part of the world that you come from? Like, I mean, do they have are they going by name? Are they going by the the location? Like, obviously with my name, with my actual government name, they could maybe make an assumption to where I'm from, but when I got it, it was pretty specific to where I come from. Huh. So, but I want to know what the context is behind the argument that it's a scam. Like, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, I also would be too, because I think it serves a purpose for those, especially that like are adopted, right? That don't have any connections and never will have any
Mm-hmm.
connections to their biological family members. So I think that's something that um, they hold very dear to them, because that's all they have because they don't have genealogy records, unfortunately.
Hmm.
So I do understand the need for wanting to take a DNA test, and of course, they're not always like 100% accurate, right? But
Hmm.
I think it provides real and accurate results.
Hmm.
What?
Right.
Or
So
sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say if my DNA test is if my DNA test is a scam, then am I going to be like, am I actually like 70% Chinese, or like and like what 20% like black or something, or
Um,
African from Nigeria?
yeah, yeah. I mean, we're just mongoloids. Remember that? We're Siberian mongoloids. So we gotta pack our bags and go back to Siberia.
Yep, I'll
Yeah,
close down IP, or
yeah,
I'll just call it Siberian Podcast.
yep. That's what we're gonna do.
Dexter was right.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, but again, this whole the important thing is that we're having these discussions, and eventually we will get to the point of no return where all the naysayers and the Debbie Downers, they're going to have no choice but to accept us asserting what we are and our place in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, mm, I think we have to, for many of us that like believe in this and follow the channel and follow influencers, it's very important not to fall into the trap that is, you say, the Debbie Downers
Hmm.
put up, right? Because people that oppose this can really use some really like gnarly, like nasty rhetoric. Especially, well, actually, I think it's funny now when, like, for example, some like gatekeepers will call us like mestizos and
Hmm.
Latines and be like, you mestizos and Latines aren't native, blah, 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 blah. Right. I'm like, you're
Hmm.
calling us Latines and mestizos. Like, you think that we're going to listen to you if
Hmm.
you call us that?
Right.
But
Exactly.
yeah, so it's just important that we don't fall into that trap and let our emotions get the best of us, right?
Hmm.
Because sometimes it's very easy. Um, because not everyone has the same like emotional like response, and maybe we get too worked up, right? Or maybe it just turns us off completely. And we're like, hey, I don't want to like see myself as native. Like these people are hostile. And yeah, I'm just gonna go back to whatever I was doing, right?
Hmm.
Um, so it's like that's why like really I try to push more. Is just like to have. It's good to be emotionally like strong, going emotionally strong about this, and be like respectful as much as you can. Right?
Right.
Sorry, you're gonna
Yeah.
say something.
Yeah. I think the one of the things that's being said by some of these internet influencers is that they make it seem like we're being, how they say it, that we're talking over connected natives, or that we're uh, somehow, or for whatever reason, assuming that we're going around disrespecting like people who are part of a tribe, or talking over them. And honestly, like, I've never seen an example of that. I think for the most part, all of us who are embracing our indigenous, are reconnecting, um, are respectful. The thing is that we're eager to learn. We want to learn from anything and everyone. Uh, and I have yet to see someone who just found out that they're indigenous a year ago, like, oh, well, uh, you know, present themselves as some sort of authority figure, and come at people with a lot of arrogance. I have yet to see that at all. And I think also is that, I mean, talking about arrogance, that's another thing, is that there all this stuff that's being said by people who have a large platform, um, who are disrespectful, or are don't like that we're claiming our indigenous identity. is that there's a lot of ego in that, and that's one thing that a reoccurring theme that I noticed over the years is that there's so much ego in our communities. People presenting themselves as some authority figure, like some guru that have all the answers, and I mean they don't say it, but they present themselves as that, um or the way they carry themselves is like it's all about me, it's all about like my platform, it's all about my influence. And if anything, they're the ones who are very disrespectful to their own people without even knowing it. So it's just i I just wish that the younger generation just really took these people as just with a grain of salt, no pun intended, by the way. But uh yeah, yeah, just I mean, listen, but don't take it as as the final word, and that's it. Just uh yeah, learn and question things, and just keep an open mind. That's the best advice I can give to anyone that either even for me, as long as I've been doing this kind of stuff, or just reading, like you still have to keep an open mind because there's just new information that's coming up every year, and it'll challenge an old way of thinking, huh? So I think that's important.
I like that you said that. Take everything like take it with a grain of salt, right?
Hmm.
Um, because you've been involved in this for quite some time, so way longer than me. Excuse me. So you've
Yeah.
seen like the ins and outs and like the worst of people and the highlights, right? And the best that's came from this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I really appreciate what you've said so far, and like just trying to like tell the younger generations to like you know go into this, but be like strong willed, right? Be
Hmm.
willing to accept criticism, but also like show that we're the bigger person when the going gets tough, right? When people get really down in the mud and like really want to say some nasty things.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's inevitably going to happen, whether you are just the one person, and you're resharing a lot of this content on your personal, like Instagram or Facebook, whatever, or whether you have, you start gathering a large following, if that's what what you intend on doing. But yeah, there's always going to be someone trying challenging you, and there, again, you have to pick your battles too, because you have people who are genuinely question you, and because they want, in turn, want to learn maybe a different perspective. And then there's also people who they're just there just to just talk shit, and try to get under your skin. Well, I mean, we've seen plenty of that. I've been part,
Oh yeah.
so that's just how it is. That's just
Yeah.
part of the, I guess, the duality in this universe.
Yeah, you're right. I like that you said that you brought up like those that are like really big influencers, right? And I think they let the fame get to their heads and they can say some really corny stuff and think that
Mhm,
tons of people are going to believe them, right?
mhm,
But then when that talk goes into action, right? And we see the things that these people say, like generalizing, saying like, oh, like all mestizos are responsible for colonization, right?
mhm,
And you guys shouldn't be saying anything, yada yada yada. That's a really, like I said, a very gross generalization to make, right?
mhm,
Because we're not the ones that are benefiting from colonialism. Like
mhm,
I was adopted, right? From Lima. And I was like found in like a very poor shanty town on the outskirts of the city.
mhm,
Nothing, right? Like literally, these people like lived in like shacks constructed of trash. So please tell me where these Latin mestizos, where their privilege is. I would love to know.
mhm,
So again, it's a very easy, generalization to pick apart, for me to pick apart. So you're telling me these dark-skinned
Hmm.
mestizos, or
Yeah.
Latinx as they like to call them,
Yeah.
are responsible for colonization, or if our ancestors are responsible for colonization. Okay, so
Hmm.
that's our ancestors, but that's not us.
Yeah.
So again, it's very easy to see the not only the inaccuracy of our history and like who we are, but just it's kind of like insulting, right?
Yeah.
Like how it's easy to like pick that apart and be like, no, that's not true, right? So
Hmm.
I got into it, but
Yeah.
I think we have a Aboriginal Wabo in here.
Yeah.
What up, Marquise? You know
Yeah.
I dropped the stream link, so come
Yeah.
on in.
Yeah.
And we'll finish this business.
Man, if we're a $5 Indians, I want my $5. I
I
haven't
want.
gotten them yet.
I'd love $5.
Fucking $5, you'd buy a fucking a taco, a good taco somewhere. Huh.
Marquise, send
We
me
have
$5.
we FBA are the original Native Americans. Y'all not. Y'all are Mongolians who are
Tell me this is
LARPing.
a troll. I
Yeah,
think
it
this
is.
is a
It is.
troll.
That's funny. Yeah.
This is a troll.
Yeah.
Marquise, go enter my stream link right now. Come on in.
Yeah. Come on in.
Come on in.
Come
I'm
on.
not afraid of Wabos.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah,
Dang.
Native American start LARPing as Native Americans. Yeah.
I can't with those people. I really
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, it's
It's just
just
embarrassing,
just the goofiest stuff you'd ever hear. Huh. Like that
right?
whole the that's
Where's he
funny.
at? Let me
Uh,
drop. You know what? Shoot, I'll drop the link again, and
yeah.
Marquise can come in here. Like he commented on the last stream. He was
Okay.
like, "Y'all are some like what Mon- Magellan Mongolians or something." And
Mongolians.
yeah, so
Yeah.
you can come in, Marquise, and we'll finish this right now. But no, he's probably, I don't know, 3 floors under his mom's basement or something. I don't know, probably playing like Fortnite.
Uh,
Who knows?
yeah.
But yeah. Sorry, I got carried away.
It's
So
only
we should go back to the video,
yeah.
right? um, let me
Yeah.
just take
Hmm.
out that comment and how do we do this? Go back. I'm not sure if the screen shows anything.
Yeah.
Okay, let me
Yeah, but
stop.
that's another thing I should say is that it is really like I can understand, when you're younger, when we're younger in our teens or and 20s, we have more patience. We like the drama, we like the arguments on the internet, like, but eventually you get to a point where it just you have better things to do, like, I mean, because I see the arguments on the internet all the time, and I'd like to think that most of the people are probably in their, no older than 28, 29. Huh? um
Yeah,
yeah, because you get past that in your 30s and up and above, y- you have a family probably, or you just have other priorities that consume your time to, or you really don't have time to be arguing with those idiots on the internet. So uh
right.
yeah, I mean, that's why, again, that's why I don't really take offense to a lot of the stuff that's being said, like, I mean, I don't take it personal.
I don't take
um
it personal. I
but
laugh. I think it's funny.
yeah, yeah, like all the the anti-indigenous stuff being said by whoever, it just I mean, we have to I think where it gets more serious is in the in politics, like when it comes down to, like, anything that has to do with voting, any thing being changed on the census to recognize people who are supposedly Native American and they're not, and they're really not. They're trying to change uh like change it on paper. That's usually the stuff that we have to take serious. um so but yeah, but yeah, that that's just my own personal take on people's negative comments about us.
I agree with you. Definitely as we get older, we kind of like try to do our best to disengage with
Mhm.
arguing against like the naysayers and the crazies, right?
Yeah.
Um, because we got other things to do. Like we're trying to like bring us together, right? And get more people to like open their eyes and see what's going on. Like
Mhm.
I don't have time to battle against some TikToker who just like goes on like rage mode and like
Right.
attacks people left and right, right?
Mhm.
Like I got better things to do. Um so yeah, I agree with you with
Yeah.
that. Um and I think that's just kind of what happens to a lot of us as we get older as well.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, and I mean, I think the few times that I do reach out to someone is that when someone actually genuinely like, uh, uh, they're not too well informed, but you can tell that they're trying to understand. And people like that, okay, I'll invest a little bit of time into speaking on the subject and maybe clarifying things that they might not know, or whatever their background is. Like, I try to be patient, but um yeah, like, it's just being approaching with caution on the internet, because you never know who's on the other end, right?
good point. Good point. Yeah, it is very important to approach with caution. You do never know, right? Um, and it's funny, like it's crazy enough that like, I've had decolonized buffalo on here a couple times, right? Like
Mhm.
we sparred, in the past, but we've managed to create this connection, right? Where I I I'd listen to his opinions, right? And I've learned from them, of course.
Mhm.
But it's just kind of goes back to like you do never know who's on the internet, right? And like I didn't know who the heck he was when we sparred on like Facebook and everything. But I listened to his podcast, and then you know, through some way we connected. Like I opened up, and I managed to want to have an open dialogue with him, and we did. And then it turned out to be okay, right? Of course, we do not agree on certain things, that is to be expected.
Mhm.
Um, but we still managed to maintain, some peaceful
Mhm.
dialogue still
Mm.
to this day.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you said that.
Mhm.
Uh,
Uh,
sorry, what were you going to say?
oh, no, no, that's it. That's I'm pretty much. I mean, I think one person actually here wanted to know. I mean, initially the topic had to do with that video about Primos Chidos.
Oh
The
yeah, yeah. We should get back
uh,
to that. We
yeah,
stopped in like the beginning.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So we kind of lost. That was the topic for tonight. Was that video that's been making its rounds on the internet about um, uh, the statement was that more Mexicans should be reclaiming our indigenous identity, and not, because it's not something that's promoted anywhere.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. And that's what we're going to talk about today,
yeah,
or tonight, I should say. So
yeah.
let's get back to that. If anyone has any questions, just like let us know. Um, thanks for glad you're enjoying the live. And there's a Native American Santa somewhere. All right,
Mhm.
so uh, let's go back here. Here we go.
nationality.
Yeah.
Obviously. So I think when people criticize Mexico or even make jokes about it, I think people take it very personally
As
because
if they're criticizing a race.
yeah, as if
Yeah.
you're saying something about like yeah, about who they are and
Yeah.
them personally.
Yeah.
Like personally,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't really think like I feel like doing those things doesn't really benefit us. Because I think it also goes back to when people
what things? Wait, what
like when
things?
you say Mexican, like, oh, I'm Mexican, like that's
Mhm.
how you identify as.
Mhm.
Or because then people when they go on about and they're like, oh, I'm Mexican, and sometimes people are like, well, you don't look Mexican.
Yeah.
And it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
Like,
what is
what is
Mexican
the
supposed to
specific
look like?
like thing
Yeah,
of like a Mexican supposed to look like?
yeah.
Like it doesn't like that's what I'm saying. Like it doesn't benefit us in that way.
let's see, bro. If you saw me walking down the street, would you be like, that guy's Mexican?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
would.
So I can't take it off. It's just
Yeah.
who I am.
Um,
It's okay. I don't mind. I also think that I wish people who were Mexican identified more with being Native American. Because if you look at the history, most people who are like the stereotype Mexican are of indigenous descent, right?
Mm.
And in the comments, people were making, I'm not gonna say the word because I've heard that it's kind of racist word, but people were basically calling us, at least me and my sister, stereotypical looking Mexicans. And I told my sister, you know how you just said, like, what does that look like? I think when people think of a Mexican in their head, they think of an indigenous man or
Mhm.
indigenous woman. And so I really wish more people would identify with that more because I think that like the US has done such a good job of erasing like Native Americans that people don't even identify with them, even though it's part of
Mm.
their heritage.
Yeah.
You know, and I understand it's also difficult because like um
so that was like, just want to pause real quick.
Mhm.
That was the main part of this video that has been shared through Instagram, TikTok, I think, and Twitter,
Mhm.
if I'm not correct. And he does bring up a good point, right? Like, what is the typical image that non, just like white, black, Asian Americans have in their mind when they think of Mexican? It's usually someone that is of indigenous descent or mixed indigenous descent, right?
Mhm.
Um, they're not really thinking of like the Criollo that lives in the high palace as a government official,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
They're thinking of someone that probably works out in the fields of California,
Mhm.
right? And I'm not. I think I'm being very honest with this, and this is true. This is just how they believe.
Mhm.
Um, but they don't think of like Native American in their head, right?
Mhm. Right.
Because what they're taught in the education system is Native American is a tribe of somewhere in North America, and any way to connect that to like someone that's Mexican is maybe, how would I say, create some sort of like difficulty, be like, wait, how does that work, right? But I believe that people that aren't native, as I just said, white, black, Asian people, Americans, a lot that I've met are very accepting of this, right? And they
Mhm.
believe what this podcast stands for. Um, so I'm happy that that's the progress that we've made
Mhm.
from this.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just wanted to bring up that point. So, did you have anything you wanted to add,
Uh.
Savage?
Yeah. I mean, um, no, literally last week I was talking to a friend of mine. He's actually, a white guy. Uh, and I actually asked him that question. What do you think of when you think of a Mexican, or what's the first image that comes to mind? He's like, well, someone that looks like you. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, that's the the norm, I think. And what's interesting about that is because I've seen that that specific question gets brought up in other on like on Instagram, for example, and you see people commenting on it who are maybe on the lighter side, like talking about shade of skin tone. And it's interesting to see people kind of get offended by that because, well, Mexicans come in, all sorts of shades of brown, like from very light to very dark. And but yeah, the common image around the world, if talking about people, from a third party looking in, yeah, that's that's the stereotypical image of a Mexican is someone who's indigenous, someone who's dark. and and obviously you can't expect people anywhere anyone who's not indigenous to fully understand the nuances of our own problems, our identity crisis that we have. So I think people expect too much out of other people who aren't, part of us. Like, but again, um, it's more like the image of someone who's Mexican is dark and has an indigenous phenotype.
Yeah, you hit the the what is it called? The bullet right in the head? No, 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 the
Yeah.
nail
Yeah.
right on the head.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And that's what people think of, right? Of someone with an indigenous phenotype.
Mhm.
That's just what they are taught in the media. Um, I know Daniel said that even though his comments do not appear on my stream, he's using magic power, so I can't see it. I'm just kidding.
Mhm. Mhm.
That not all, like mostly Eurostock in Latin America, are all in palaces or some rich life. Yes, of course, I know that, Daniel. I was using that as an example.
Mhm.
Um, well aware that there are different people that aren't native or indigenous descent at all that live in less fortunate places. So yeah, thanks, Savage, for
Mhm.
sharing that. Go ahead and
Mhm. All right.
play. Yeah. Um, there we go.
I don't know if you guys know about this, but in LA, there's like this big scene where people who are of indigenous descent and have educated themselves in the history of indigenous people gatekeep and kind of put down other people who are trying to do the same. I don't know if you guys heard this. It's this
Never
big
heard of.
controversy that
Mm.
I've seen from just like social media influencers who identify as indigenous. Um, so I understand it's hard because it is being gatekept, you know, but I really wish more people would kind of like go back to their roots. And I'm not
Yeah.
talking about a nation or a government because look at the grand scheme of everything in the world. Most governments are corrupt, most governments are bad.
Mhm.
Um, Instead, I'd hope people go back to the culture, their roots, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I would really wish for people
Yeah.
to do.
But
Yeah.
that's why at least for me, like I've personally for me, I've always gone through like this identity crisis, right? Because it's like you say like here, right? They've done a good job of like the erasure of indigenous people. I mean, it's the same thing in Mexico, right? They've done a pretty good job of like kind of like separating us in that realm too. So it's kind of like in both sides. For me, I'm kind of like, okay, like I can't identify for either one because either one isn't really accepting me as like a dark skinned woman. Like a lot of it, you see it in social media too, of like, or like when I used to watch novellas, right? I would see very like light skinned women. I mean, white passing women, white Mexicans. I don't know, whatever you want to
It's
call
funny
them.
because you say used to as if that's not still actively a thing that happens right now,
Well,
you
yeah,
know?
I mean, it still is. Yeah. But it's like, wait, what did I say?
What did you say?
When did I say used to? Right
You
now?
just said that you used to see novellas and you'd see
Oh,
a lot of white
I
passing.
used to watch novellas. I don't
Yeah.
watch them anymore.
Uh-huh.
But like that's how I would see them. Like, and then you would see like the brown girl or the very dark skinned and like Latina, and she was like a maid or something,
Hmm.
or she was like the one who was like taking care of like the kids or
Mm,
something like that.
yeah.
That's how you would kind of see it on TV. And I never realized that when I was
Hmm.
growing up. Like I didn't really think much about it until I grew up, and then I
Yeah.
was kind of like, okay, like I see it. And then sometimes you would see like the main actress was Latina, but she was also like French or something. Like,
Hmm. Dude, a lot
yeah.
of the chicks who like play actor roles on novellas in Mexico are from like Europe,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is like so backwards, man.
Yeah.
Like, and then where is the representation for all the little kids who grew up? Because I'm telling you, for me, it was only George Lopez. That's
Yeah.
the only guy that I.
George Lopez.
Mm.
There's a lot I want to unpack there.
Yeah.
And it starts off with the guest here knows is aware of like the gatekeepers, pretty much
Mhm.
what we talked about, right?
Yeah.
And I think that girl serves as an example of what we just talked about in terms of like getting easily disengaged because of whatever opposition you have faced, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then they kind of like talk about the telenovas,
Telenovelas.
telenovelas. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, mouthful.
Telenovelas, and how they do play a part in like the thinking of like, wow, am I finally going to see like a native person that looks like me, like in the public view of these TV shows? No,
Mhm.
we just see them as like maids or these other low employee actor positions, correct?
Mhm.
Um, so I'm glad that he brought that up,
Yeah.
even though my knowledge of telenovelas is not a lot.
Mhm.
um, but yeah, do you want to add anything to that of what they?
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, who you're discouraged from identifying as that, or uh y- all that, the whole the media representation, it's a big deal because it shapes our views, it shapes our self-esteem, um, and it's negatively affected how we see ourselves. And so it makes sense why there's for so long we've rejected being uh indigenous, why we've only embraced whatever European blood we may have, like um and the self-hate, it manifests it varies from person to person, but we can talk about the examples of what a lot of that self-hate entails. um and I mean, even when we know the truth of the last 500 years and how we've been forcefully assimilated, but we still choose to identify as Hispanic and Latino, even though you might even look full blood and have no European ancestry at all. Even that, I guess you can interpret it as a form of self hate, Um, but yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense what how she feels about that, or what's how her opinion's been influenced because of the media that she's consumed from uh, child to an adult.
Yeah, it is interesting to make those points. And like you said, you could be 100% like native, right? You couldn't have any like
Mhm.
outside like European African ancestry whatsoever.
Mhm.
But because you were born in this environment to where it's like normal to, or not, I should say normal. Well, it is normal, but like in their eyes, it's normal. But to be more accepting if you are Latin, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
not indigenous, no way. So that, like you said, is a form of like self hate.
Mhm.
Um, and it's sad to see, but I think, as I said before, there's been a lot of progress in the US with people being more accepting of this change, right? Because
Yeah.
this is unfortunately a very Latinized way of thinking that, in my opinion, should be changed because I think the current thinking is not healthy. It
Mhm.
creates self-hate, and that just affects your overall health, your overall
Right.
thinking of how you appear, right?
Mhm.
And unfortunately, this isn't too discussed as much as it should in the Latin world, um,
Mhm.
especially by the elite, by many of the elites, and by the education system, by other people in power. They very much push to be like Latinized, like push us like indigenous, whatever behind us, because
Yeah.
that's what it is. This is in the past. Embrace who you are, embrace your Latin self.
Mhm.
But there's many issues wrong, like the problems that are
Yeah.
wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, um,
Yeah, when you're fully aware of history, at least for me, I mean, I honestly think my real decolonizing self came more when I started rejecting being Catholic, or being rejecting religion. Really was really my starting point. And
yeah,
it wasn't that hard for me to do, when I was a kid. Like, you don't care about church, uh and I mean, what's one of the first things that they did was they stripped of us our native names. They forced us to speak Spanish, English, French, Portuguese, and we were given Christian names, or European names, or Middle Eastern in some cases. And so there's all these things that we have to overcome. uh, uh, and all of it really, like, or going back to our roots, is it takes a lot of time. It takes uh generations to be able to accomplish that. And right now, all we're doing is just setting the groundwork for future generations to do better than be in a much better position than we are right now. That's all we're doing. And um, I, I'm not, I've come to terms with that. I'm not going to be around for when we really see the fruits of our labor of what we're doing now. We're not going to be alive, be around long enough to see that come into fruition. We're not. It's just a reality. But I think the important thing is just to not to focus too much on that aspect of our future, but on more on the contributions that we do now. So
If you don't mind me asking, what age did you kind of disassociate yourself with Catholicism, or like,
uh it's probably like about 16 or 17 years old.
was
And
it
I grew up in a moderately Catholic home. My mom was I think more involved. And she it was uh the go to church every Sunday, and like do go through the whole catechism thing, and do the communion, being baptized. I went through all those motions. Obviously, I didn't have control over it because I have to do what my parents tell me. But as soon as you're old enough to have some sort of independence, and you start really thinking about that, and just um, I guess you have to be an exceptionally creative person, or someone who just you have to just want to question things. And um I started, I think, at an early age.
was it? Would you say it was like it was an easy process, or it was kind of hard in the beginning to like?
No, no, I wouldn't say it was easy, because there's just so many questions that uh, question. It's just it's an ongoing process. That's the thing. It's yeah. It's like my old mentor. The way he put it was the colonizing, getting started is the easy part. The more difficult part is actually being consistent with it and staying on track. That's where, at some point, we all, most people, I'd say, would falter at some point, because it's a lifelong commitment to that. And and it's not fun, to be honest. I mean, you have to give I mean, again, the easiest part for me was to give up religion. I never cared for it, as long as I can remember. But there's other things that I know that are probably essential to us fully reconnecting, that are just that are pretty hard to give up. But again, it's baby steps. It's being patient. It's all about time. The way I was brought up, like me, if I ever have children, like I wouldn't raise them the way I was raised. Again, it's all for the sake of putting them in a much better position than I am now. So if I'm privileged, I guess you could say that they have even more privilege, because they're gonna be born into it. So
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I I think I was like a teenager as well, where I kind of like started to question like religion, because I was raised in a very Christian household.
mhm.
Um, and then I think it was in college where I really felt like I had more of a concrete understanding of like different like faiths, right? Like Buddhism, Islam, um, Judaism, and many other religions as well. So then I like kind of thought to myself, like, if there's different afterlives for all these religions, how do I, you know what I mean? Like, hold on. So when
Mhm.
we pass away, we're all going to go, but we're taught in Christianity that there is one
Mhm.
afterlife. So it kind of like then, affected my mind is like, wait, so there's other people that are going to go to different heavens, things like that, right?
Mhm.
So then it made me go down even further down the rabbit hole. But
Mhm.
college does that to you.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, as far as like Christianity and Catholicism, like I always respect like what people have and like their different religious beliefs. And I think like for me, like it's just it's different. I'll say, yeah, for
Mhm.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'll just say it like that. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, like I think our Red Dog said that all religions are good. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
think it's good, especially for people that live in not the best environments, and they have faith to keep them going, right?
Mhm.
Because it can be very hard to want to progress when you live a very difficult life, but you know that you have like your religion, or whether that's Christianity, Islam,
Mhm.
or Buddhism, like with you to help guide you along this very difficult path.
Yeah.
So I definitely, yeah, respect that. But yeah, I think we were almost done with that video.
Mhm.
So let's get back
Yeah.
to it.
Well, I actually have to get going
Oh,
because
you do?
I do have to wake up early, but yeah, I just
Sure.
um I'm gonna have to go ahead and call it a night.
No worries. No worries. I'm glad that you're able to come on, Savage. Appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, and thanks for having me on. I look forward to actually doing this more because again, I'm gonna be starting something very soon here with book reviews and whatnot on I'll give you more information on that later on, but we'll coordinate something. But again, I think uh we might even have a discussion on that alone.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I'm sorry, do you mind telling me the two books again? I just want to type it in from to the
um
audience.
so the first one is Reading the Maya Glyphs by Michael Coe.
Okay.
You can see that real well. Yep.
You're reading the Maya glyphs.
Michael Coe has a extensive amount of material on the Maya. Like he was the guy to go to for anything Maya related.
Thank you.
And, and
Yeah,
there's
that's
that
really
one,
interesting.
and then this one,
The Aztecs.
yeah, Nigel Davies. It's kind of a, it's you can still find this book, but yeah, you definitely have to go on the internet to get it, and it gives it's pretty good. It's pretty good to to have a book like that with just a condensed history of the Mexica, or Tenochtitlan or the Triple Alliance as a whole.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very curious, especially about the Aztecs book.
Yeah, yeah,
Did
that
you say it
one's.
was? Sorry,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say. The reading the Maya glyphs, was it like Michael Coe's and Koe?
No, COE.
Coe. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. You're gonna say something else, Savage?
Um, no, that's it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I won't keep you anymore. Thank you so much for your time
Mhm.
again.
Mhm.
And yeah, we look forward to collaborating with you more.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. And yeah, have a good night. And we'll see you later.
Okay, man. All right. Have a
Yeah.
good night.
Yeah, thanks. You too. So yeah, guys, I think we'll finish this video because we're almost done. Um, and then we'll just wrap things up from there. So let's get back to that really quick. And here we go.
I saw when growing up that I was like, holy shit, like I look just like him, you know? I look
Mhm.
just like him.
Mhm.
But he wasn't like I guess you could say Chris Evans or
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
Chris Pratt or whoever
Yeah.
like I guess Americans look up to when they see a white man. But I never
Yeah.
really had anyone like that. I hope Tenoch is like that. But you told me he doesn't really identify as indigenous, right?
He just says he's not very in touch with that side of the culture, so he doesn't
Okay,
like identify, but he doesn't discourage anybody
wanting to do
from
that,
wanting to
right?
do that. Yeah. But yeah.
Have you ever had an identity crisis, or have you always just been like, I am what I am?
I mean, I don't know about identity crisis. I don't know. I if you had to if somebody asked me what I identified as, like racially, I don't know that I have an answer.
Mm,
Because I feel like I mean I understand like blood and stuff like that, but as I get older, I feel like uh, a big part of racial identity is the experience, how people treat you and stuff like that. So like if I was to say that I like even as a kid, right? If I was to say like oh I'm Mexican, right? That's more of a nationality, and even then I don't really look it. And I think that's a part of it, like how people treat you, how you grow up, the experience, all that stuff that I think builds what we call race and stuff. So for me, it's kind of difficult. So it's kind of
I
it
get
is
what you
what you
mean.
get what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's funny because I feel like you are kind of describing in a way like an identity crisis, but not a conscious like it fucks you up every day. You wake up
yeah,
and you're like,
Mhm.
"Fuck! Like, what am I?"
yeah,
It's more of like, well, I've never really felt like this defines me or this defines
yeah,
me, so I've never really tried to.
yeah,
Which I kind of fuck with too.
yeah.
I mean, we're talking about race and nationality, but I think that if we're going spiritual realm, right? If we're
Yeah.
going like spiritual, maybe is the wrong term, but if we're going more on a personal right of like self growth, I think you just got to be yourself, and you can't. These terms kind of limit you. You
Mhm.
Yeah.
know, saying like, "Oh,
Oh
I'm
yeah, for
Latino
sure,
or
for sure.
Latinx," or "I'm like this, that." You know, I think I've always thought labels and terms limit you in what you can do.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, that's why it's so hard because I think a lot of Latinos who rise up in like Hollywood, I think a lot of them get typecast. Like a lot of them like, oh, you know, he's a Latino guy. We'll put him here and here. And it's one of those things that's so frustrating because I wish you could just go into Hollywood and do any role that you want to do, but
Mhm.
then like immediately you're like, well, we need this Mexican guy here.
Yeah,
You
Yeah.
know?
yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, so I think a little bit over that video. So yeah, everybody, that was pretty much it. That's what we wanted to talk about. And it's interesting to see the host kind of describe like what he thought of, like what his identity was, right? And I don't know. I have my opinions on it. I think that the guest made some really good points. Um, would someone here say that they confuse Latino and Mexico for native like every time? Yeah, I heard that he had brought up like the uh, doing away with like Latino or Latinx, right? Um, but yeah, anyway, it is a little bit late. It's 12:30 at night where I'm at. So, did anyone have any questions at all? If no one did, then I think we'll wrap this wrap this up. And I do have a video planned for next week. I don't know if it will be live. I think it'll just be a video that I'm making. But if no one had anything, I guess I will drop the stream yard link in case anyone wants to chat for like a few minutes after I end the recording. But yeah, thank you all for wanting to come on. It's always good to have a lot of guests, even if it's like, just 20 people. I'm always thankful. So yeah, please leave a like if you enjoyed the video or comment or whatever, right? I'm glad you guys enjoyed, and I'll definitely see you guys next time. So hope you all have a good night and see you guys later. Thanks, Marksman.